Hello, my fellow humans. We have Christian Espinosa, who's a cybersecurity expert and best-selling author and entrepreneur who empowers audiences to navigate life's challenges for resilience, clarity, and purpose. Welcome to our podcast today, Christian.
Thanks for having me on, Justin. I appreciate it. Excited to be
Yes,
here.
awesome. We'd love to know a little bit more about you as a human being, what you're doing in cybersecurity, and also a little bit more about your life story.
Yeah, I currently work with Blue Goat Cyber. It's my company. We focus on medical device cybersecurity. So we help medical device manufacturers make sure their device is secure from hackers and can get on the market, because a medical device has to be cleared or approved by the FDA in the United States and by other regulatory authorities around the world. So that's what we do. So this could be an implantable, like a pacemaker. It could be a drug infusion pump. It could be anything that's connected to a hospital bed or a patient. That's what we currently do. I did this in my first company. I did med device cybersecurity. The company I started in 2014, I sold it in 2020. It wasn't our main focus. And after I sold my company in 2020 to the parent company, a couple years later, in 2022, I developed 6 blood clots and almost died. So if it wasn't for a medical device, in this case, a portable Doppler ultrasound, I wouldn't be here. So after I recovered from those blood clots and that resulting depression, I thought maybe this is the universe telling me to focus on MedTech or medical device cybersecurity. So that's when I spun off and formed Blue Goat Cyber. And before that, I used to be in the military. I did cyber warfare in the military and the Department of Defense. And I've got about 30 years experience in cybersecurity.
Dude, that is truly amazing. I'm glad that you are still here. That's a tremendous thing to live through. I myself went through an experience. I actually died as well. Well, I
Really?
actually died and went through mine, yeah. But it's
Wow.
amazing we're both here. We're both in cybersecurity, trying to help people, trying to change things. We're given a second chance here.
Yeah, for sure. Got to take
Yeah,
advantage of the second chance. There
right?
may
I
not be
mean,
a third one.
I'd like to kind of move more on the medical devices because those seem to be kind of a hot topic today. Because a lot of people have so many devices like in their repertoire of technology that they may not be updating or even know they need to update them or how to update them. Is this something that's catching on more to be more secure for those devices, or is it something that they need to be concerned about more? Like,
Yeah, it's a major problem. The FDA in late 2023 actually changed requirements and mandated cybersecurity for medical devices. But before late 2023, most devices were put on the market without anything considered about cybersecurity. So we have all these legacy devices on the market that are extremely vulnerable to attack. And these devices are typically connected to a hospital environment, which from our experience, hospital environments we consider them hostile because they are not secure at all. And every single hospital that we've ever done a penetration test against, we've been able to get full access to. So they're not secure environments. And now you combine a unsecure environment with medical devices that are not secure, and it's just a problem waiting for something to happen. And as an industry, we're trying to solve this challenge, but it is a big challenge because on average per hospital bed, there's 14 connected devices. So out of those 14 devices, quite a few of them have vulnerabilities.
that is profound. That's kind of scary too. The thing that you're laying in the hospital and like it could get hacked at any time and that your life could be at risk because of that. I feel like there's more that we could be doing. Those legacy devices, is there anything that we can do about them? I mean, because they're going to be going on our networks. They're going to have access to them. Do we just get rid of them completely? Are they able to be hardened down?
I think it's a matter of phasing out the legacy devices with a new device that has cybersecurity built into it and having a plan to do that. The challenge with healthcare is a lot of the traditional cybersecurity measures
Yeah.
don't apply. Like a doctor that is in a triage situation can't like type in a password and go to multi-factor authentication on their phone or authenticator app because every second counts, right? So that machine
Yes.
most of the time has to be unlocked.
Yes.
So that obviously introduces risk, but it's always in cybersecurity about risk versus usability. And, the controls shouldn't interfere with the usability and actually introduce more risk. So
Yes.
it's a challenge. And it's one of these things that a lot of people simply don't know about. One of my missions and my company's mission is to raise awareness in MedTech about cybersecurity,
Yes,
because there's a lack of awareness, and I think there's a lack of awareness in general in cybersecurity, but specifically in
100%.
medtech, nobody really thinks about it until it's almost too late. So we're trying to increase that awareness so people think about it early on and can design cybersecurity into a product versus try to bolt it on at the very end of the product, right before launch.
That makes a lot more sense and more proactive in sense of cybersecurity. So let me ask you this. In doing this, have you experienced any issues relating to how to implement the cybersecurity into these devices? Like, can you kind of walk us through like what kind of measures differ in these compared to, I know you were saying earlier that you can't do two-factor authentication. That doesn't work. That makes sense. It's time sensitive. So what things are actually being implemented into these devices?
Well, it's very different because we're working with a product versus software typically.
Yeah.
As an example, we have a client that chose a particular microcontroller for it's a bronchial decongestion product where somebody can breathe through it. It can help decongest their lungs.
Okay.
Because they chose it's not the wrong microcontroller, but they chose a microcontroller that did not support specific cybersecurity features, such as secure boot. They had to change the features on the product to make it standalone in order for it to get approved. Because without that secure boot feature, which is a requirement by the FDA, somebody could tamper with the firmware, which may potentially impact the patient. It's a little bit more challenging than like configuring some controls on Amazon Web Services, because there's specific pieces of hardware that make up these devices that drive cybersecurity decisions. And if some of the hardware is chosen without considering cybersecurity, it can have ramifications. So that's a big component. And then also the user interface of a lot of the devices, as I mentioned, with a device that has to be logged in is a challenge as well, because you can't have the same controls necessarily, because you also have to consider somebody may have liquid or tissue on their gloves when they're trying to interface with something. So it's
You
very
got
different
locked
than
out.
traditional cybersecurity. What's that? Yeah, you can't get
Yeah.
locked out, right? Yeah, imagine you get locked out and now you've got these gloves on. They have a patient you're trying to treat, and you can't get back into the device.
Don't
And if
die.
it's a
Give you like
surgical
30
robot
seconds.
or
You
something, it's a
call
big
IT.
problem, right? Yeah, press your
That's very,
pager and call IT. Exactly.
yeah, that's something so challenging, and yet it's very prevalent in like hospitals and like doctors' offices. And they have all these old devices.
Super old devices, and sometimes the cycle to get these devices in play is very long. And then once the device, let's say you're a hospital, and most hospitals are a conglomeration. There's like, Banner or SSM. They have like 70 hospitals under their overall umbrella. So they make a procurement decision to buy a specific, let's say, patient monitoring system. Then they train all their staff on it. Now, if they want to phase that system out because it's not secure and get a new system, they have to deploy it to every hospital, and they have to train or retrain all of their staff. So it's not a simple thing. And that's just with one product, the patient monitoring system. Imagine this times 10 or times 20 with all these other things that have vulnerabilities that need to be phased out. It's a bigger problem than just like replacing it. We have to train the people,
Yeah.
and they have to be trained in an environment where the stakes are high. It's not like you get locked out, you call IT, and you get back into your accounting software
If they call you back.
if they call you back. Exactly. In this scenario, if you don't know how to use the system, a patient could die. So it's a lot more risky.
There's a lot more risk involved in that to kind of weigh out the good and the bad with that. Do you have any good stories about maybe talking with leaders of companies, how to help them understand that this life cycle is something they need to consider in their risk environment?
I have a lot of stories, and I think overall the industry is progressing slowly, but in the right direction, which is really, I think people don't know what they don't know. And, like I said, this is a general cybersecurity challenge. So I have been talking to a lot of founders and CEOs of medtech companies. And the fortunate thing is that a lot of people are starting to get it, because so many people have been burned, like not just with legacy devices, but with new devices. They forgot about cybersecurity until like 2 months before they're going to try to get cleared by the FDA so they can sell their device on the United States. And then they hire somebody like us. We find 1,000 things wrong. They can't possibly fix 1,000 things in 2 months. So it delays the time to market, costs a lot more money. It gets the investors frustrated. It gets the CEO frustrated. So part of my mission is to help prevent that, because a lot of these devices are going to change humanity for the better. And if they are delayed to market because of cybersecurity, that's a big problem. Not just, the financial problem, but the problem because this device is not available to help save lives.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we have a lot of technology nowadays. When you have a focus on cybersecurity, it can be very challenging for people to understand what's involved in that or what they need to do. Or they hear all these words like cyber secure, and those like we just want it to work. We just want to save our patient's life and be safe. But it's just like trying to have those conversations and just get them to understand. Like you said earlier, they're understanding it more. I know my experience, we're still kind of far from where we need to be. But like it takes time because so many people are reactive and they're just not proactive in doing things or understanding sometimes what they need to do or have a plan.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
crazy world out there.
And I think what's useful is in medical devices, there's a standard called ISO 14971, which is about patient safety. And this is like if the device fails or it has a challenge or something unique happens to it, an anomaly, like what is the impact to the patient? And then you have this thing called AMI TIR 57, which is security concerns for a medical device. And these two relate. A security concern from a cybersecurity perspective can cause harm to a patient. So when we look at it through that lens, the cybersecurity thing is actually affecting patient safety. So we have to do something about it, because if I can, turn off the cooling mechanism of a laser for acne, and also increase the intensity of the laser, I can really burn somebody's skin severely, as an example. And we tested devices like that. There's things like you may not think about, but this thing is in a medical spa treating people's acne, and it has vulnerabilities.
That can become real dangerous or used as a weapon against them. Someone hack into it, be like, oh, look, Jane's here. Cool. Let's turn up the heat for her.
Yeah, yeah. It could be used like intentional like that, or just malicious software is propagating the internet and happens to hit this device, and now this device is compromised, and a patient could be compromised as a result.
So, in that being, even if you have good network security, that device can still be vulnerable, correct?
Yes. One of the things we look at with medical devices is all the entry points into the system. An entry point is any way into the system. So it could be defined as the third-party software that makes up your device. If there is a vulnerability in a third-party component that makes up your software, then that could be a problem. It could be a USB port. It could be a Bluetooth low emissions connection. It could be a NFC connection, RFID. Any way that somebody can get into the device has to be assessed from a threat perspective and from what somebody can actually do once they break in through that avenue.
Said earlier, lives are at stake and on the line.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about you building your business. Like, how did you get to this point? Like, realizing, you talked earlier about you went through the blood clots. I'd like kind of more about like kind of that whole journey. You can tell us more about that.
Well, the journey was very difficult for me. Before I had the blood clots, I had done 24 Ironman triathlons, and the night before I went to the hospital, I had done like 120 burpees, so I was in pretty good shape.
Whoa.
And
I can't even do that.
a friend of mine convinced me to go to the hospital and said I might have blood clots, and I was like, I don't have blood clots. I'm an athlete, but people like me don't get blood clots. I promised her I would go, so I went to the hospital. And it turned out I had 6 blood clots, not just 1, but 6 in my left leg. And I don't know anything about blood clots, so I asked the doctor what it meant. He said, well, you can have a stroke or die at any second. So I freaked out. I was there by myself. My nearest family member was in Denver, and I was in St. Louis. So I was there by myself, and I just thought my life is over. So I started like silently crying, and images of my life went through my head. And I thought, man, did I live a good life? Did I do what I wanted to do? Did I matter? Did I go for the big things? And they gave me some blood thinners. I went to my vehicle and sat in the parking lot and just kind of cried for a while, because they told me everything that I used to do, I couldn't do. I couldn't run. I couldn't hike. I couldn't fly. I couldn't sit in a hot tub. Not that I like sitting in hot tubs that much, but I couldn't do anything I used to do. Yeah. So I could just sit around in the basement taking blood thinners. And at first I was grateful, and then grateful to be alive. But then I felt like I was just surviving and not thriving. And I felt trapped. I felt like, man, this is not, I'm existing, not living. I don't want to just exist. So I decided one day to stop taking the blood thinners. I remember looking at the bottle, and the thing is, I had to pay like almost $1,000 a month for these blood thinners because now I had a pre-existing condition. I couldn't get insurance because I quit the parent company. So it's like this ridiculous scenario. So I just like threw them across the room, and I'm like, I'm going to reclaim my health. I'm going to take charge of my life again because I don't care what the doctors say. I'll listen to them, but they don't care about my life as much as I do. And I saw that one doctor for like 8 minutes, right? So someone in 8 minutes made a decision that affects the rest of my life, right? So after that, I got every single blood test I could possibly done. I went to like LabCorp, ordered, like checked every freaking box. They took like 5 vials of my blood. I got another test on my leg, ultrasound on my leg, and there was no root cause for the blood clot. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to, just reclaim my health and do some IV therapy. And that one decision to reclaim my health and stop taking the blood thinners and put my life back in my own control gave me the confidence to start Blue Goat Cyber as well. Because before that, like I said, I was existing but not really living. And when you're existing, it's hard to go for big things. It's hard to think bigger because your world is shrunk. At least mine was. It was like this
Feel
small
that.
world. Like I'm afraid to do anything because I might die. Basically. So yeah, I had to get out of that depression and make some different decisions.
That's a truly profound story, and I feel that too because I've been something similar. You understand that your life is meant for something else. A lot of people can't really do that. I just had this conversation earlier with someone else. We were talking about sometimes it takes something so drastic for us entrepreneurs to kind of throw us forward into what we need to do. If it's life or death, it's so profound things that have to happen to help us be like, okay, I'm starting this business. I'm going to live life more. Like, it's crazy what we have to go through just to kind of push us forward to, like you said, thrive more, be more human. Like, it's amazing.
I think it's a constant evolution, right? We go through these phases. And even like 3 weeks ago, I felt like I was on the verge of like this mental breakdown. I was like so focused on growing my business and I couldn't tune out. It's like I couldn't sleep, I couldn't shut it off. So it was just like, I didn't have very good balance. And then I just realized, you know what? I need to reflect on this scenario. I need to recalibrate and I need to regroup because to get to where I want to go, I've got to be different than I am today and better and evolved. And yeah, that's what I've been working on.
Ooh, that really hit me because I've actually been in that similar seat for the past couple of weeks too. Realizing sometimes it can be hard to take action. You're kind of stuck and like the multiple scenarios of stories going through your head or things happen to you physically. When is enough to just move? Because you started moving forward, then things started happening more, and you get out of that mind space. This is a bad place to be in sometimes.
Yeah, it is. For me, it was becoming a bad place to be. And what I had to do is slow down. It's like boom, boom. I was trying to get everything done so quickly. And I realized, you know what? I just need to slow down, really focus and think about what's the big domino that if I push that one down, all the other ones will fall down. If I work on this
Ooh,
big domino, what is that big domino? And I just like keep reflecting on it. It's like right in front of me, I'm sure. It's right over here. I'm just missing it. But it's too easy to just try to boom, all these things
yeah.
and get wrapped in that day to day, trying to check everything off your list. And you might miss the one thing that if you step back and zoomed away and slow down, that this one thing will appear. And if you fix that one thing or work on it, then everything else will become easier. So it's like this constant like ebb and flow for me.
That's so powerful that you said that. I feel that. Because I've heard this saying where if you do too many things, then you're basically doing nothing.
Yes.
And it makes sense. Like, I love how you put that, the domino effect, putting things in perspective so you can understand to slow down sometimes as human beings. It's hard though, especially being in our space in cybersecurity and building a business. You just want to like go, we gotta get this done, we gotta do this. Oh, let me do this. Oh, look, a shiny new object. You're just dodging bullets. Like, whew, we're like superheroes.
Yeah, I think For me, it's about being more strategic and saying no to things. Like I was supposed to speak at this conference in Berlin, and it was a hard decision, but I finally decided to turn it down because it in the big scheme of things, it's a distraction in what I'm trying to accomplish, even though it, sounds cool and it might get me some notoriety and maybe a little bit of business, but the opportunity cost and the travel is too much. So I had to say no to that. And in the past, I probably would not have said no to that. So I'm trying to get better at with my time and learning what to say no to. And even if I commit to something, or say I'm going to do it, if later on I realize that this doesn't make sense anymore, being okay, like withdrawing and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't support this thing anymore. That's been something I've had to unravel myself, because before I was like, I committed to this, I'm going to do it no matter what. If it kills me, I don't care, I'm going to do it. But now I've got to be like, at this point in my life, this doesn't make sense anymore. Like I said, it's slowing down and looking at the landscape and making the right decisions.
It's like that entrepreneurial conundrum. I feel like right there many times. Build, grow, go way too fast. And like I know for myself, I like how you said that, because for myself, as I'm going through life, things the slower, like you said, the slower you go, the more you can accomplish too. You really have that bird's eye view on things as you're going through it. I really like that synergy there. I get that. I feel like other people in our audience are probably going through those same things too, trying to build businesses, or going through health challenges, trying to figure out what the hell they're trying to do with everything, how they're trying to build it, try to look too far into the future, and instead of just kind of looking right here into the present. And for the present, it's a very important place to be. That's hard for me sometimes. I may be talking out of my ass. I don't know.
I think it's hard for anybody that's a high quote a high achiever that's focused on big goals, right? It's a balance.
I know it's, and I just had this conversation earlier today about not work-life balance, but balancing life within what you're doing. So like they were talking about, don't balance your work, your life, your family, but you do kind of have them all together and balance it within that cohesive unit.
Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to touch bases on the impact of AI and cybersecurity in terms of those medical devices. Are you guys working with anything with that, or what have you found?
Yeah, so we work with AI quite often with medical devices. A lot of medical devices have an AI component now that helps with some sort of diagnosis, and there's a lot of challenges with this. Part of it is the training data to train the model, as an example, and we look at model evasion, data poisoning. We look at all the cybersecurity related attacks against AI, but one of the things we also look at is, because AI is garbage in, garbage out, basically. If you don't train the model properly, it's not going to perform right. And then over time, it may have more challenges as well. So what we look at, and this is a challenge with healthcare, is if I have, let's say, an AI enabled in vitro diagnostic system that can take a sample of tissue and detect a tumor, a malignant tumor, I have to train that model properly. So if I feed that model 1 million images of malignant tumors and 1,000 images of benign tumors, as an example, that model is going to be predisposed to give a diagnosis that's malignant because it's seen more samples of malignant data. And that's just a high level example. But then we also have to extrapolate, because where do I get the source of the data to train the model? This is even more of a challenge, because in the United States, there's HIPAA, there's rules that protect patient data. So how do I get these images of malignant and benign tumors? And then what if I am treating someone from Europe and they're in a United States hospital? Do I even have any data from my AI model from Europeans or from
Ooh.
people from another country? Because to get that data into the model is even more of a challenge.
Yeah, GDRP, real thing.
Exactly. You got GDPR,
Yeah.
and you got other countries have similar regulations. So our model is almost by default going to be flawed given the training data, unless there's been a lot of due diligence, a lot of homework done on that.
I know those compliance and regulations, they're nothing to mess with. Yeah, and I've found those challenges trying to train the data, but do you ask them for the data? Is it okay for you to use the data? You have to get consent, and how you can get that many people to consent to that.
Right.
Like, that's a challenge.
Or how do you figure out if it's acceptable to sort of take a large data set and anonymize it? Do you need people's permission to do that? I would think so, because you're still using their data, even though you're not anonymizing it. Yeah.
A lot of the times, a lot of these models are being trained, whether it's for compliance or outside of that regulation. It seems like they're just getting this data from somewhere. If it's data brokers, if it's being leaked, they're using it. But like you said, whether it's correct or not, or if it's going to not give hallucination.
Yeah, that's the other challenge is AI is created by humans. So humans have a hard time saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer. So of course, AI
Right?
has a hard time saying, I don't know. So if AI in a medical context is unable to come to a conclusive diagnosis, will it say, I don't know and defer to the doctor, or will it hallucinate and make one up? That's the other challenge.
Ooh. I know that's a little scary too. Like we're going in that direction with a lot of these devices and AI. But I think people forget there's so many challenges involved. It's not just a simple go to Chat GPT and use it for your copyright or something.
The risk is much higher with a medical
Yeah.
device diagnosis. And then also, like, who's responsible for that decision? Is the AI model itself? Is the person that decided to use this model, or is it the physician? Like, who's responsible, right? That's a whole other challenge.
Yeah. Would that liability fall on? Because something goes wrong, who are they going after?
Yeah. And I live in the Phoenix area right now, and we have autonomous driving cars, which have some AI component to it. But the thing is, my CTO looked this up, that you cannot give a ticket to an autonomous driving car, because you can only give a ticket to a person driving the car, not the car itself. So now we have these cars that you cannot, according to our existing rules, give a ticket to. But what if they break the law? Who do you hold accountable? Is it the company that has these cars? I mean, it's a different way of looking at the legal
Yeah.
system, because it doesn't apply in this scenario. It doesn't work.
Yeah, because our laws are written for people when people do things, not
Right.
objects or AI or this car hit person B. But with person B running towards the car, was it the car's fault? How do we determine this? Like, it's so sophisticated. It gets more and more sophisticated.
Right.
Like our
Yeah, so
laws
it's
have not
similar with the
caught up.
liability with medical devices, right? It's like, how do we address these things? So it's not just like the cybersecurity portion. It's the model, how we train the model, how we handle liability, how we change our rules in order to accommodate the AI, but make it also where somebody's responsible. The AI itself can't just be responsible. Whoever programmed the AI, I would think, have to be responsible. Whoever's making decisions based on it. But yeah, I hear the Waymo is a brand. I guess the cars can't get tickets. So
Right? So
they can do
I
whatever
guess
they want.
well, it's kind of like I learned recently, like when we had these fires in California, that the electric company could be sued and they got felonies. They got felony convictions against the company themselves. I didn't know that was a thing.
Okay.
I guess in that way they did that. They have to kind of, I guess, structure the law in that similar fashion. I didn't know corporations would get felony accounts against them. That was crazy when I found that out.
Well, a felony typically means someone is going to jail. So who goes to jail at the corporation?
Yeah, I don't know. They're like 7 or 8 counts felony charges against Pacific Power or something something. An exact electrical company. But it was just a very interesting article. Maybe they're
Right.
still trying to figure it out, which I would assume, but I don't know much about it. Like you said earlier, I don't know. And I'm okay with saying that. But yeah,
That's good. You're one of the few people that'll say, I don't know.
I mean that's the part of the thing when you're in leadership and entrepreneurship. That one thing you should really challenge yourself to understand that you can't know everything. You're always learning things, and it's okay to say, "Hey, I don't know, man, but let me see if I can find out," or talk to the right person who does know.
Exactly. I think also the longer you pretend you know, or the longer you remain silent because you're afraid to ask the question, then the problem just gets worse, because now you're going, on months and months where you actually don't know, but you pretended you know, and you're afraid to say something at this point. So it's like an odd situation to find ourselves in.
Yeah, and being a true leader, you need to be able to make decisions and action like that,
Mhm.
not waiting a month, a week. I mean, if that's the case, then you probably not be in the right position, you know? And it's like you don't have that lack of understanding of like being able to take action, figure things out, go find it. Who has the answer? I don't, someone does. So, yeah.
Exactly.
It's an interesting space being an entrepreneur.
For
Very
sure.
interesting. What got you into the entrepreneurial space? I know you said you were in the military And
It took me a long time to get into it. I grew up in a very chaotic environment and like a single wide trailer in Arkansas on welfare and government food stamps. And my mother was addicted to drugs and alcohol and a lot of car wrecks. So I did not have any stability or security growing up. So I swung very far the other way, joined the military. It's all about stability, security. Then I did 9 to 5 jobs because I thought I needed stability and security because I lacked it growing up. But one of the 9 to 5 jobs, I had a constant run in with the CEO and it was causing me immense stress. I just quit without another job lined up. And I had never done something like that. But I just thought, maybe this is my moment to leverage my connections and do something different. So that started me on the freelance path. I did freelance work for about 5 or 6 years. I taught classes all over the world, cybersecurity classes, did penetration testing of aircraft and commercial aircraft and a few other things. And then I got bored with that and decided to start a business. I felt like I was stagnant doing the freelance work. I was making a lot of money, but I don't feel like I didn't feel like I was progressing. So I thought, if I can start a business and hire people, I'll give people an opportunity. I get a chance to mentor people. I get a chance to contribute at a higher level. And that's what I did. But to take that first step and become a freelancer, I had to really come to terms that I really didn't value stability and security, even though I thought I did because I didn't have it. And what I had to realize was my chaotic childhood actually prepared me very well for entrepreneurship.
that's what they say. I hear that a lot. Like when you have such a chaotic childhood, you had just a lot of instability growing up, that you make for a great entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur, you're given this playground where you have to make decisions, you have to get creative, and usually when you go through stuff like that, they say you're more creative in trying to figure things out and get from A to B.
I think for me, like that chaos of my childhood the only way I got out of it was I had to become very resourceful and very resilient. And I think those two traits are extremely important for entrepreneurship. You're going to get beat up. So you got to figure out how to solve a problem. You got to bounce back. So being resourceful and resilient, I think if you don't have those two traits, you're going to struggle and probably not make it as an entrepreneur.
Yes, 100%. You can always be an entrepreneur and work for somebody else, but still,
Yeah.
again, I feel like you're still going to struggle because you need those traits too.
Yep. You still need those traits. You got someone else that can help, obviously, but you still need those traits. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because there's decisions and things that have to be done that you may not be comfortable doing, but you got to do them, or just go back to 9 to 5, I guess. Why not? Okay, that sounded really, I got the heebie-jeebies just saying that. We'll never mention that again.
Well, and a 9 to 5. Sometimes I think, man, that'd be a lot easier because I traded my 9 to 5 for a 5 to 9 and a lot of stress. But there's a lot of reward too. If
Yes.
my destiny is in my hands, so that's rewarding. But it can also be super challenging because a small inaccurate or the wrong decision can cost money. And I paid a lot of the dumb tax to my first company. I'm sure I'm paying some now with this one. It's just a matter of how fast I can learn and how fast I can pivot and away from the mistakes.
Ooh, I feel that hit hard right now. The dumb tax. What are you trying to say, mister? I might be paying a little bit of that. But like you said, the key is, as long as you're learning and you're growing, you do some stupid, dumb things, but you keep going. That's the thing. People kind of give up before they're almost there. Like you're getting there, you just got to keep going. And like it gets stressful. It's overwhelming sometimes. It sucks. You're relying on you. You don't have a 9 to 5 company to really rely on. It's all about what you do, your next actions, and the next choices that you make, and how disciplined you are to make them. I feel that discipline's the big one.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of it's just consistency, like you said.
Yes.
Sometimes when it's the most challenging, we're at the glass ceiling and we're about to break through, but we don't know that because we can't see the glass ceiling. But if we just keep being persistent, keep up our habits, we'll get through and we'll be like, I made it through. But
Right.
At those times, it's easy to kind of, for me, like to crawl in a cave and say, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
And I still keep looking for that damn glass ceiling. But like you said, it's not really there. I want to thank you, Christian, for coming on here. What are some things that you can leave our audience with? If they say like they have a hospital or a healthcare organization, they have some of these devices in it. What are some things the steps that they could take maybe to help them either get rid of those, transition to new ones, and then also maybe some advice on building a business and being an entrepreneur as well.
So the first question you ask about like legacy devices in a healthcare environment, I think the best thing to do is segment those devices. Segment them on a separate network
Like
away
a
from
VLAN?
everything else. Yes, like a VLAN. I know it's a simple concept, but it's rarely implemented from my experience.
Yeah.
So now you've got these devices segmented with a router, between your hospital network and these devices, and you can filter the traffic to them. I would say that's the number one thing to do for that, for legacy devices. For anyone trying to build a business, I think get used to doing hard things is part of it, but also really understanding your target audience, your ideal client profile, and how you position yourself and how you're going to message. Your messaging, I think, is important. For me, I didn't really understand this when I started my first company. I just thought if I build a cybersecurity company, everybody needs cybersecurity people will show up, knocking the door, wanting business, and it didn't work that way.
Build
So I
it and
had
then
to
it'll come.
really understand marketing and understand the exact problem I solve for my prospects, where the prospects are, how to communicate with them, how to communicate in a way that resonates with them, and then framing all that in the context of what I like to use is Donald Miller's story brand script format, where my company is the guide, but the prospect, which hopefully becomes a client, is the hero of the story. Too many companies do it the other way around, where the company tries to talk about how great they are, blah, 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 but nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear how you can solve their problem and how great the client is or the prospect is and how you help them become greater, not the opposite.
Ooh, you just said that and it gave me chills because I'm just now learning that myself. It's a really hard mind shift. They could be taught one way, but that's kind of the way that really actually works to help you connect with people. It's hard still. I'm like, ooh, I love how you said that. If anyone wants to reach out to you, or maybe they want to help with their medical devices through Blue Goat Cyber, how can they reach you?
Yeah, they can go to bluegoatcyber.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. My company's got lots of content on YouTube. We have our own podcast as well. So, they can just Google Blue Goat Cyber or Christian Espinosa, and either I'll pop up or my company will pop up.
Awesome. I'll leave that down in the show notes as well for everyone. Well, thank you for your time and appreciate you coming on here today, Christian.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
You have
Enjoyed
a
our
good
conversation.
Yes, me too. You have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Bye.